With leadership, timing is everything. How you respond to just a couple of key and critical moments will transform the level of performance that you get out of your team. What are these key moments? Let's break it down. So the important thing to remember with high performance leadership is that it all comes down to expectations. Where are you setting the bar? There's an incredible quote that absolutely changed my life and my leadership. We are not the highest version of ourselves that we can imagine. We are the lowest version of ourselves that we can accept. What this means is that if I want, for example, a six-pack, I'm not going to get a six-pack by putting a picture of me with a six-pack on a vision board, right? I'm going to get a six-pack by setting a minimum acceptable standard that I will go to the gym and I will do my abs 3 days a week. We as human beings do not rise to the level of our goals, to the level of our aspirations. We fall to the level of our minimum acceptable standards. What this means for your team is that you as a leader set what the minimum acceptable standard is. If right now your team is underperforming, they're perpetually disappointing you, they're perpetually coming in below where you want them to, it is because you are fundamentally accepting that behavior, and they are falling to the level of the standards that you accept. Therefore, if you want to level up your team, it very simply comes down to you, starting with you, leveling up your standards, raising the bar so that the new minimum acceptable standard is excellence, is A player, is the best performance that you are capable of bringing to the role. High performance starts with us as leaders and what we are willing to accept, what we tolerate from our team. So raising the bar has to happen within you internally first. And once you truly internalize that, everything about your leadership will shift, especially in the critical moments where it matters most. So the first critical moment that matters most is when you set the expectation. That very first day that a new team member joins your team, how are you setting expectations around their performance in the role? Are you setting explicit expectations around their performance in the role? Are you telling them that this is the minimum acceptable standard? It's excellence. It's exceptional performance. And here is how we measure that. So on day one, I will build what I call a job scorecard for every single member of my team. And the job scorecard is a definition of an A player in their role. And on that very first day, I am handing that definition to them and I'm saying, this is yours now. This is the standards, the minimum acceptable standards for your performance in this role. So that's the first critical moment that will define everything about how that person shows up for the rest of their work with you. Because if you set the standard down here, you will get performance down here. If you want standards up here, that starts with you defining what an A player looks like and making sure that they know that from day one. The second critical moment is what happens when your team makes a mistake. This is fundamental. When your team messes up, because they will, what do? Do you jump in there, freak out at them, take the project back, fix it yourself? Or do you keep the standard? Do you apply that pressure to them relentlessly and say, you messed up, you fell below the standard, unacceptable. So what are you going to do about it? How are you going to solve this problem? And what do you need from me in order to do that? When every mistake becomes a learning opportunity, becomes a level up opportunity for your team, then every mistake will start driving higher and higher levels of performance, as opposed to those mistakes being the moment that they learn, my boss freaks out, he comes down on me, he takes back responsibility, he fixes it. And I promise you, in that environment, you are robbing your team of the opportunity to grow and level up from their own mistakes. So when mistakes happen, how do you as a leader respond? Do you keep the ownership with them And do you support them in growing and learning through that mistake? It makes all the difference. And the third and final critical moment: what happens if your team starts underperforming? When they perpetually don't just make one mistake, they start to slide beneath your minimum acceptable standard. How do you respond? Do you tolerate it? Do you let it be? Do you get frustrated and then you go in and you fix it? It's really annoying and you wish that they would be better, but fundamentally you accept and tolerate the behavior? Or do we get over our own emotional discomfort and immediately call it out? Immediately grab the one-on-one time with them and say, hey, I'm noticing you dropping below this standard. Help me understand. Because we agreed on day one that the standard for the role was up here, and yet I see you performing down here. Help me understand why, and help me understand what you need to level up to meet the minimum acceptable standard, right? And this, guys, is relentless. We never let up. We never let our team slip below the minimum acceptable standard, because the second that we do, we are teaching not just that one underperformer, but the entire team that our standards have fallen, that we accept B+ level performance. And the second that you do that, I promise you, even your highest performing A players will start to fall, because human beings do not rise to the level of our expectations. We fall to the level of our standards. When and where you as a leader set and hold the bar matters. It is everything when it comes to the level of performance that your team is then going to turn around and deliver to you all day, every day. Where do you set the bar, and how do you respond when your team falls below it? Master this, and you will immediately see your team performance begin to level up in a way that shocks you, that surprises you, and it will start to happen immediately when you internally realize and begin to raise the bar. In our fourth and final video in this series, I want to dive into some specific tips and tricks, specific language, specific scripting that you can use to raise the bar, hold the bar, and level your team up. So go ahead, click into that next video. And if this was helpful, don't forget to subscribe.